We're going to do slave labor for the Germans. We're going to keep you alive only as long as you're able to work. Our assignment to work was to rebuild the railroads that were bombed by American and British planes. And they stripped, I remember, 2 guards come before me, one in the front, one in the back. The guard in the front pulls off my gloves, takes my winter coat. Temperature during this time, as I learned much later, is between 0 and 5 degrees Fahrenheit. There's snow all over the ground. They take off my coat, the guard in the back pulls it off, and I'm stripped of winter garments. We are ordered into a forced march. I have no idea where we're going. As nightfall begins to descend, they order us, most often, because most of us didn't understand the German commands, with rifles, lie down, lie down. We had to lie down. We're on a road. The road is covered with snow and ice. Makes no difference. It's dark, you lie down now. Not next to one another for a little heat you might get from one or the other, but in a straight line. For the next 82 out of 90 nights, that's where I bedded down. Roadways, open fields, invariably covered with snow or ice, no winter clothing. That went on for these 82 nights. Men began to die. We were not getting any food, really. Sometimes in the morning, we would get a few scraps of hard brown bread. It was virtually inedible. When we were fortunate, we would get I was going to say a can, no, it's not a canteen, it's just an old can, like a Campbell's rusted soup can, with some hot water in it. If you were lucky, you got a little piece of potato on the bottom. That was our sustenance for a day. The only thing I had going was my mind was still intact, my imagination. And there were 2 thoughts that dominated. One, if you can remain alive, the war will ultimately end, and maybe you'll get back to American forces. Or, someday, maybe you will be able to get back. Maybe you can escape. I knew then I could not carry on the march much longer. And I knew this was the time to escape. There were 2 American soldiers, there were 2 lines of us, 2 American soldiers near me. I felt it would be preferable to have some others rather than trying to do it alone. And with hand signals alone, because if the Germans caught us looking at one another or speaking, that would be legitimacy for a shot. And so I did it with my hand, and I gave them motions. There were 2 Americans, and I motioned to them. I gave them the signal of how we will get together and over a hedgerow. When the time fit, I knew I was looking for a spot because of the way the guards were placed. When we would make a curve to the right, there would be a very short period, perhaps 10 seconds or less, that we would be out of the view of the guards. And when we hit that point, I gave the signal to them to move. We threw ourselves over a hedgerow. We crawled. I was walking and crawling, and it was very, very tough to walk for me to talk. The other 2 were better suited to it. We crawled down a slope, and I remember this beautiful, lovely little village, a German village. It turned out to be Reichenbach, a German village, and as we approached the village, we said, my gosh, we have a place. There must be somebody there that will help us. All that we heard were the same sounds we heard on the battlefield. We had escaped to a Nazi staging area. It was loaded. These were men prepared, even to be prepared to go to the front lines. So we saw tanks and German soldiers. If we were seen, because the order had been made that no more prisoners were to be taken alive, we would be shot. We crawled through back alleys. In the distance, there's a White House. And I tell the other two, that's a safe house. How do you know? I don't know, but I know. And the instinct, again, was working. And we crawled through the alley and got to that house. I banged on the door. We looked obviously trenched. You know, burnt beards, filth, dirt. The only thing the Germans ever did for me was to shave my head because it was full of lice. Lice didn't belong in that area. I had no hair. But the man of the house ran out to the porch, looked up and down, saw no German soldiers, and he pulled us in. The wife ran to the kitchen to get food. We were totally emaciated, and she was doing her very best. The other two were able to get everything down. There was some meat in the soup. I couldn't handle the meat because I hadn't eaten in days. I was able to have the soup drip down. They then drew a map of where we could hide out. We heard heavy artillery in the distance. Knowing that the American or British troops were nearby and they were moving forward, if we could find a place to hold out for several days, we might survive. And they got us to this barn, and we were able to pull ourselves into the hayloft. And there was a little hole, and we could see down an alleyway. We were there in that barn maybe 2 or 3 days, and then suddenly we heard noise one night. The Germans were pulling out. We didn't know what was going on, but that was what was resulting, which meant, and we heard artillery in the near distance, so we knew the Americans or British were nearby, and we could just hold out. We did long enough, and one day I'm looking down through this crack, and I see down this, like a driveway, I see some helmets, some soldiers march by, and I said to the other two, those are not German helmets, those are American helmets. They said, nah, you're crazy. I said, what? And then all of a sudden, a Jeep, an American Jeep with a white star on the hood. I said, that can only be American. And yes, the 3rd Armored Division of Patton's 3rd Army were there on the scene. We were the first victims that they had come across.